Good morning and good evening to all of you who are joining us today across the United States, in India, and around the world. Welcome to day 2 of the India Idea Summit and the 46th annual meeting of the U.S.-India Business Council. We had a fantastic day yesterday with interesting and inspiring conversations with ministers, business executives, and other leaders on the U.S.-India corridor about how they have navigated the unique challenges of the past year and how they are looking ahead in a post-pandemic environment. Now, I'm not going to recap the entire day, but if you missed it, please visit our USIBC YouTube channel to catch up on what you missed. Today, the conversations will address key issues to the collective futures of our countries: climate, education, and trade in a post-pandemic world. We will hear from senior leaders in both governments, including Secretary Kerry, the Special Envoy for Climate Change for President Biden, and his counterpart, Bhupendra Yadav, the Minister for Environment. We will hear from a visionary U.S. state governor, the Indian Education Minister and Trade Minister as well, and the co-chair of the U.S. Senate India Caucus. We will conclude today's program with a keynote from our very own CEO of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Suzanne Clark, as well as the Minister for External Affairs of India, Dr. Jaishankar. And we will have the opportunity to recognize the outstanding leadership of 2 Indian CEOs who have been real path breakers in their field, Mallika Srinivasan of TAFE and Shiv Nadar, the founding chairman of HCL. But before we get to this illustrious lineup of speakers, I wanted to share a few personal thoughts and reflect on the state of the U.S.-India Business Council and the U.S.-India partnership. You know, in 2021, the state of the U.S.-India Business Council is strong. We have an exceptional team of experts who have devoted their professional careers towards advancing the U.S.-India corridor. We have a fast-growing cadre of members that represent the very best in global industry and the support of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The Council and its members have proved incredibly resilient during this year of crisis, recovery, and resurgence. And that is also a testament to the power and the strength of the U.S.-India partnership. As the relationship between our 2 countries has grown in importance, so has the U.S.-India Business Council risen to be an important and consequential force in the U.S.-India corridor. Now, USIBC is stronger than ever before, buoyed by the commitment to content-based work, advocacy, and business intelligence and thought leadership. In some ways, the stakes have never been greater. The global economic recovery is still challenged in many areas, contending with the uneven successes against the COVID pandemic globally. The global strategic landscape remains in flux as prices are rising on key goods and supply chains remain partially disrupted. And this is why the focus on investment and on U.S.-India trade relationship carries such importance for both countries and for the global economy. Our 2 democracies and innovation-centered economies have the chance to unlock newfound opportunities and remove long existing trade barriers, driving inclusive growth in both countries. We have the chance to collaborate in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic together and partner on keeping our citizens safe from future pandemics. We have the opportunity to invest in clean technologies that can help stem rising global temperatures and create a sustainable future for both of our people. And we have the chance to inject ambition into our bilateral trade relationship, broadening the opportunities for the youth of tomorrow. A free trade agreement between natural partners like the United States and India should not be a far-fetched dream. It should be the logical next step in our relationship. Now, will that require close collaboration between stakeholders, governments, and industry bodies, as well as domestic constituencies in both countries? Yes, of course it will. But to paraphrase my old boss, President Barack Obama, instead of asking why, we should be asking why not. So let us take hold of the opportunity and really seize on the need to engage in a serious and substantial way on trade in the coming years. The US Chamber and the US India Business Council and our members are ready to do our part. We are ready to capture the potential opportunities that will make our citizens better off today and tomorrow. We are committed to supporting the tools and technology that will strengthen our defenses and secure our borders. And we want to grow, not limit, the potential of our digital future by creating architectures meant to stimulate rather than stem global investment in technology. As we look to the future, we know that it will be a digital one and that technology will play a crucial role. We have seen the importance of that acknowledged in the bilateral and quadrilateral dialogues between our leaders. And yet, cooperation on emerging technologies must come to life beyond words in joint statements and into the real world of actions between businesses and governments. Only then will we have powerful, efficient, and globally scalable partnerships to advance 5G and even 6G infrastructure, AI, and advanced manufacturing. We are ready to help grow manufacturing in both countries, providing goods, services, and livelihoods to our nearly 1.7 billion citizens across the United States and India. We are ready to support the collaboration on advanced technology. But for industry to be able to do its part in building that better future, it needs governments to lean forward and be ambitious, pursue transparent, stable, and predictable policies. It needs an ease of investing and an ease of starting a business and an ease of ensuring that capital can flow where it is needed. And it needs more open trade frameworks that recognize that tariffs and barriers will only hurt producers and also harm consumers. Just as the United States and India need each other and are invested in each other's success, so too government and industry need each other to succeed. So as we kick off today, I want to say thank you to all of our attendees. You are all members of our USIBC family, and either as members of the council or as our extended family or friends. This year has been a challenging one for all of us. Every one of us has been affected by the pandemic, directly and in some way. Yet we have all come out of it stronger and more resilient. Finally, I want to thank our sponsors who have been strong supporters of our programs and of this summit, and also have been champions of the US-India corridor, the citizens, as well as for the citizens of our two great nations. We have a great program ahead of us, so be well and enjoy day 2 of the USIBC India Ideas Summit.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Greetings to everyone gathered for the India Ideas Summit. My gratitude and congratulations to the USIBC team for putting together such a rich event covering the key priorities of the relationship between the two countries together. As on that note, I am very pleased to be with you all today to introduce this next part of the agenda focused on one of the most important issues, which is related to climate change. During the recent visit of our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, to United States of America, and his meetings with President Biden on climate change and clean energy collaboration, it became very clear that the essential role that the private sector, the research institutions, and the government can play, as was evident during the bilateral discussions, as also during the Quad meeting. Now, through this summit, we'll be able to further take forward the discussions and bolster the industry and government ties to achieve together our climate and clean energy goals, especially as we prepare for COP26 next month. At Tata Power and within the larger Tata group of companies, we are committed to and have been leading industrial voice, not only in reducing emission effects, but also the changes that we need to do for climate change. And we are leveraging innovation and technology to accelerate the action urgently needed to move towards net zero carbon. With that, I'm honored to introduce our next speakers, two leaders who have been working tirelessly to bring us towards a cleaner and more sustainable future. Mr. John F. Kerry, Special Presidential Envoy for Climate from United States, and Mr. Bhupinder Yadav, Minister for Environment, Forest, and Climate Change from India. Secretary Kerry was appointed by President Biden in January this year to serve as the first special presidential envoy for climate and has been very active since then and has indeed visited India twice in such a short time, as also he has traveled to various parts of the world to gather support for the climate summit COP26 in Glasgow in November. Secretary Kerry's remarks will be followed by an address from the Minister, Mr. Bhupendra Yadav, who is the Minister for Forest, Environment and Climate Change in Government of India and has been responsible for this position since July of this year. Please join me to welcome Secretary Kerry.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. I am really delighted to join you all today at the U.S.-India Business Council. It's great to be with this group representing both government and private sector leaders in the United States and India. The recent IPCC report sends us all a truly urgent message, and it makes our job very clear. We've got to do more to address the climate crisis. To keep 1.5 degrees Celsius within reach, we need to take dramatic action now on global emission reductions. And to achieve net zero global emissions by mid-century or before, as well as advance efforts on climate adaptation and resilience, we need to raise our ambition. India is a critical partner in this effort. India has already made a bold statement by setting a goal of 450 gigawatts of installed renewable energy capacity by 2030. It's a great goal, and we support that enormously. We're committed to helping India to be able to achieve that goal in every and any way that we can. And there's a great deal that we think our countries can do together in the climate arena, from increasing technical exchanges to expanding trade and foreign direct investment. I very much look forward to working together across U.S. and Indian public and private sectors so that we can set and achieve new goals in this decade and expand our clean energy markets. You know, I had the great privilege of traveling to India twice this year, meeting with Prime Minister Modi and a number of cabinet ministers, as well as leading CEOs from India's clean energy industry. On my most recent trip, Minister Yadav and I launched the Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue, through which we will work to chart pathways to decarbonize energy-intensive sectors of the economy and to mobilize the billions of dollars necessary to transition to clean technologies and fuels, and to construct the resilient infrastructure that we all need for the extreme weather that we're already seeing today. This critical dialogue is one of two lines of effort under the U.S.-India Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership, which was announced by President Biden and Prime Minister Modi in April. Our partnership underscores our joint commitment to taking decisive climate action in this critical decade, 2020 to 2030. That's what the scientists tell us we must do. And it also shows us how cooperation on climate and clean energy is a central pillar of the U.S.-India relationship. Private industry leaders, including some of you here today, have a really crucial role to play in realizing these goals. There's an enormous opportunity to continue growing the clean energy market in India, and many companies have made enormous pledges to build renewable energy toward that 450 gigawatt goal. Frankly, there has never been a better time to invest in the energy transition. Renewable energy is now cheaper than ever. And in fact, it's cheaper to build a solar farm in India than anywhere else on the planet. And investors are flocking to clean energy on a global basis. In India, I'm really pleased to see that investment in the clean energy transition is already rebounding after the worst of the pandemic, and it is now on track to surpass pre-pandemic levels. Clean energy represents an enormous economic opportunity, my friends. The International Energy Agency forecasts that if India seizes the clean energy opportunity, it could become the world's largest market for batteries and solar panels. There's a major opportunity for two countries to expand our bilateral investment and trade in clean energy products and services to both of our economic benefit. Beyond just deploying renewable energy, we will also need to develop, demonstrate, and scale up emerging technologies that will be crucial for a net zero transition. The International Energy Agency forecasts that roughly half of the emissions reductions needed for net zero by 2050 will need to come from emerging technologies not yet ready for commercial markets. So, US-India collaboration on exciting technologies such as clean hydrogen can advance affordable climate solutions for all sectors of the economy. That's why we're excited to have launched the US-India Hydrogen Task Force. So I look forward to joining our Indian friends at COP26 in Glasgow, where India can join all of us in demonstrating on a global stage the seriousness of its defined climate ambitions. Thank you, and congratulations on the impactful India Ideas Summit. And I'm pleased now to hear from my friend and co-chair of the US-India Climate and Finance Mobilization Dialogue, Environment Minister Yadav. Thank you.
His Excellency John Kerry, Special Presidential Envoy for Climate USA, Ms. Nisha Biswal, US-India Business Council President, distinguished officials, invitees, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I am privileged to be a part of this summit on day 2nd, which is organized today by the US-India Business Council as a part of India Ideas Summit and 46th annual meeting. I am told that my colleagues from the other ministries like Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Ministry of Finance have also been invited in other sessions of this summit. Given the wide participation from various sectors and organizations in this unique event and earlier event, I am sure that the US-India Business Council can play a very important role not only in strengthening the India-US strategic partnership, but also contribute in addressing the global common challenge such as climate change, biodiversity loss, land degradation, sustainable recovery, etc. The ongoing pandemic has shown us that building a cleaner and more sustainable future has become more relevant and crucial ever than before. But any effort to achieve this end should also lead to eradication of poverty, especially in developing countries, and no one should be left behind. There is no dispute that science should be the basis while addressing the global common challenges of climate change, biodiversity loss, and land degradation. But the root cause of all global common challenge can be traced back to unsustainable lifestyle where the animal spirit of more is better than the necessity has become the driving force of growth and development. Now it is high time that we change our system of production and consumption from the linear model of make, take, dispose to that of circular model of reduce, reuse, recycle. I would like to tell this August gathering that in India, the traditional concept has always been the circular economy. We use resource as long as possible, extracting maximum value followed by recovery and regeneration of product and material at the end of each service life. Although innovation and technology are important for promoting the circular model of economy, but without change in human behavior, any accomplishment in innovation and technology may not be effective in combating the ecological crisis like climate change, biodiversity loss, and land degradation. From a Buddhist perspective, environmental problems are caused by greed and endless desire of people. Therefore, any environmental protection strategies must pay special attention to the philosophical dimension of human nature, Buddhist principle and belief, particularly Shil, Samadhi, and Panya, and can contribute to solve environmental crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that sustainable and inclusive development are needed more than ever, as an outbreak will have deep and lasting socio-economic impact in every corner of the globe. However, the developing countries like India, adequate means of implementation, including financing, always remain a prime concern for implementation of any development agenda. Concreted global efforts are urgently needed, with developed countries taking lead in action toward achievement of 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 target mentioned in 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and also provide means of implementation to the developing countries, especially on Sustainable Development Goals. We should also strengthen action to protect and restore nature and promote multiple approaches, including ecosystem based approaches to achieve sustainable development goals. All countries need to embrace a sustainable lifestyle and emphasize the role of biodiversity as an enabler and solution for many of the SDG targets. As for India, it has taken several proactive steps to mainstream the SDG into our policies, schemes, and programs under the dynamic guidance and leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. Our sustainable development policies cover many sectors such as renewable energy, energy efficiency, sustainable mobility, sustainable habitat, and many other. India has already enhanced its renewable energy target from 175 gigawatt to 450 gigawatt by 2030. Leadership Group of Industry Transition, International Solar Alliance, and Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure are global initiatives at the international level, which India has been spreading in this regard. I also request the US India Business Council to consider supporting this global initiative, especially leadership group for industry transition in whatsoever ways possible. We are also expanding our forests and taking many steps for conservation of wildlife and biodiversity. Initiative include target for restoring 26 million hectares of degraded and deforested land and development of 200 urban forests. We have developed biodiversity register and expand combined forest of tree cover to 24.56% of the total geographic area of the country. We are undertaking new program for conservation of species like lions and dolphins, among others. However, our climate action and obligation are guided by the principle of common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities and equity. In the addressing the contemporary challenge, it is important to focus on solutions that can help us reach our goals with justice. The need of the hour is global public partnership to harness technology, innovation, and finance to help developing countries in scaling up their effort to protect nature. To conclude, I would like to emphasize that in keeping with the core principle of sustainable development goal of leaving no one behind, inclusiveness, and multi-stakeholder partnership, the world must continue taking special care of the most marginal and vulnerable segment of the society to ensure no one is left behind and emphasize building more resilient and stronger societies to absorb such external shocks in future, so that there is no further hindrance to achievement of the 2030 agenda. I wish the event a great success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Yadav, and thank you, Secretary Kerry. Certainly, combating climate change is the clarion call of our generation. We must ensure that we are doing what we can do to secure a more sustainable future for ourselves, our children, and our future generations. And in this endeavor, the United States and India must be the strongest of partners. We here at the US Chamber and in the US India Business Council are ready to do our part to support this important undertaking. I'm so pleased now to turn our conversation to the US-India Education Partnership, including the ways in which we can promote higher education, vocational training, and skills development, and frankly, skill the future generation that will be responsible for the more sustainable and technology-driven economy of tomorrow. Education is a major element of the US-India relationship, with some 200,000 Indian students studying in the United States, alongside a large number of Indian and Indian American professors, educators, and educational technology professionals. I have the privilege of engaging in conversation the Minister of Education and Skilling on the important collaboration opportunities in this area. And after that, we will hear from Dr. Renu Khator, Chancellor of the University of Houston System and the President of the University of Houston, one of America's leading university systems. She'll be joined in that conversation by Amy Reagan Morehouse, the Senior Vice President of Trailhead, a Salesforce platform that is leading on training and skills development. Let me properly introduce Minister Pradhan. You see, Dharmendra Pradhan is the Union Cabinet Minister for Education and Skill Development and Entrepreneurship in the Government of India. But he also previously served as the Union Minister of Oil, Petroleum, and Natural Gas, as well as Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. And he has been responsible for the many reforms and new initiatives that we have seen in the energy sector, including in lowering carbon emissions and bringing India forward into a low carbon future. Minister Pradhan has also launched so many initiatives focusing on skilling, reskilling, and upskilling the manpower of India, and has emphasized the need to bridge the skills gap for Indian youth. As Minister of Education, he's been seized with the need to expand and scale higher education opportunities to accommodate India's young demographic and prepare for the workforce of tomorrow. He has told me that working with India's youth has been a passion of his throughout his life and career. And in fact, as a postgraduate from Utkal University in Bhubaneswar, where incidentally my in-laws are also from, he has actively pursued issues concerning youth and youth empowerment, youth employment, and the need to create skill-based education, rehabilitation, and resettlement in the agricultural communities and in mobilizing the youth across India and including in his home state of Odisha. Minister, it is such a pleasure to have you with us here today.
Thank you, Nisha. Thank you for inviting me to your forum, and I'm happy to see you in this discussion.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, you have been you have had a very long and successful tenure in government service, as I noted in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. As you come into the Ministry of Education and Entrepreneurship, how are you bringing that life of public service and your priorities and your ambitions for the education and skilling portfolio that you are now in charge of?
Nisha, both the responsibility are equally important. I was in charge of infrastructure ministry for last 7 years for the energy security, for the energy accessibility of our citizens, and that was in economy ministry. Now I am in charge of social sector ministry, especially in the social sector bracket. Health and education, these are the two most important ministry, which are little bit futuristic, little bit dynamic in Indian context. So I am equally happy and equally more responsible than the previous one to look into the future generation of India. When the Indian future generation will be ready, that will have a huge impact in the global community. Now I am in charge of creating global citizens. In one sentence, if I can say what was the basic difference in the petroleum sector, Nisa, I was a job provider. Now in the education sector, I'm here to improve the employability of the job seeker, from job provider to job seeker, and to improve the employability. This is the challenge of Indian education and skill ministry. And our target area, if I give one statistics of our country, you will happy to know there is a national education policy introduced in 2020 July by Honorable Prime Minister Sri Modi. From the age group of 3, for the first time in India, from the age group of 3 to around 23, all they are coming in the vertical of education. This number in India is around 520 million. This is the responsibility we have to increase education and employability side by side. So this is a huge task, huge job for me, and I am taking utmost care with my utmost humility, with my own effort, with our leadership's guidance. India has attained already 75th year of independence from the British period, from the British colony. The next 25 year is very important for India, when India will be completing its 100th year of independence by 2047. These are the 25 year ahead. The present day student, whatever age he may be or she may be, will be the functional citizen, the dynamic citizen, the decision maker of my country. Again, I'll say, which will impact the global sphere, global politics, global economy by next 25 years. And fortunately, I'm lucky, I'm in charge of such an important sector.
Thank you, Minister. You approach this with a sense of humility and urgency, but also great ambition. I've heard you speak both publicly and privately about the large undertaking to really scale and expand educational opportunity across India, from the primary education to the higher education, from the high technology fields to the labor skills, etc., to really create the workforce of tomorrow. And I would love for you to maybe spend a couple of minutes on how you look at that from the U.S.-India perspective. I noted that we currently have about 200,000 Indian students in the United States that study here at any given year, and the opportunity to perhaps look at both U.S.-India collaboration on Indian students in the United States, but also, how can the U.S. and India be collaborating in India? Would love to hear your vision for that.
Nisha, you'll be knowing, as I already mentioned, last year, India, after 34 years, India, a new national education policy introduced in front of society by our government, where there are a lot of features are there, where the correlations lies ahead. Rightly, you have mentioned 200,000 Indian students are studying in USA. Our higher education students number is 40 million. Lot of students are interested to go for higher education overseas, Favored destination are UK, favored destination are Australia, favored destination is USA. And these are the area where our students are going. Now, in the national education policy, we have given emphasis of multidisciplinary education, twinning of the education, internationalization of our education. We want to invite global educational institution, and country like USA has a very timely and tested mechanism of university ecosystem. Some of our Indian university can collaborate with prestigious USA institutions. In that way, the number of students will be benefited in a bigger way, in bigger numbers. When the foreign university will come to India and will having tie-up with our local university, or they can open in their own also, that will be create a new scope for our Indian students. That will be in a way affordable education for Indian students, quality education we can get. And personally, I am very impressed about one aspect of American university. Research is a prime area for American university. The American economy is such a powerful stage today. One of the key factor of that reality is American universities' research capability. And India will be interested to tie up in all these areas, in the skill sector, in the vocational sector. We want to, as I said, we want to increase the employability of our students. So we are open to any kind of knowledge partnership, and India and America are very reliable and dependable strategic partners in the different field of the economy and society. And in education vertical, already there is a bridge, there is a gateway, there is a trust from both sides. The time has come to scale it up and make it a big story. And our national education policy is giving opportunity, policy framework for that only.
Thank you, Minister. Certainly, we see enormous opportunity in that collaboration in the education sector. You know, I'm going to give you one last question, and want to once again thank you for taking what is an extraordinarily busy time for you right now in India, and taking time to be with us today. As I mentioned in the opening, we're going to have a conversation following this between Dr. Khator of the University of Houston and Amy Morehouse from Salesforce. And the focus is really on kind of skilling and how do we ensure that the graduates of our university systems are also coming forward with the skills that are necessary in the workforce. We are seeing across the United States a real focus on upskilling and reskilling of the American workforce. Organizations like Salesforce, like Eightfold AI, are really focused on creating those employable employment opportunities for the current workforce. I would love to hear from you how a partnership between the United States and India can really look at focusing on that need to skill, upskill, and reskill the labor force, as well as train kind of the youth and the future generations. If you could spend a couple of minutes on that, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Nisha. I'm happy. Eminent educationist like Dr. Khator is part of this interaction, and I'm fortunate to have some interaction with her during my previous visit to Houston. In those days, he was just assigned with the presidency of Houston University, and during her tenure, some of our Indian corporate house have tied up with Houston University for more further mutual necessity requirement. They have Indian companies have some mutual interest with Houston University, and Dr. Khator was instrumental to tie up for that mechanism. If I say very specific expectation we have, there is a reality, globe is changing, the nature of our workplace is changing, the job are changing, some old job are abolishing, some new job are emerging. The era of industrial revolution 4.0, we have to prepare ourselves to the changing scenario. This is very exponential, this is not incremental. We have to catch up the exponential speed of the changing job nature. What is the answer? Answer is continuous skilling, reskilling, and upskilling. And I agree, we have a robust number of higher education students in our Indian education system, but to compete with global job market, we have to go through some kind of plus ecosystem, some kind of additional capacity we have to have with our Indian students. Here, the skilling, upskilling, reskilling is necessary. For a developed economy, for a digital economy, American university are our natural ally, natural partner to create that skilling, reskilling, upskilling ecosystem in our higher education university system. And in future, we'll be discussing with USA, with US universities. I'm happy you have sent some friends, those who are working with our Indian skill ecosystem, education ecosystem. How can we, somebody few days back, somebody who is a sympathizer of Indian society and a part of developed economy, he gave a piece of advice to me. Why don't you invite 100 Indian origin person, those who are into artificial intelligence vertical? Let them do something for Indian community, for Indian students, Indian universities, that will create a complementary impact on the global economy. If Indian manpower capacity will increase, it is not only going to help the local economy or domestic economy, it is going to help the global economy. In this area, we need more cooperation. I am confident, and leadership like Dr. Khator I'll be talking to her in person, and in future, there will be more institutional network between Indian universities and American universities, and I'm sure USIBC and personally you, Nisaji, will help in that sector to India.
Indeed, Minister Pradhan, this is a shared labor of all of us because not only is this critically important to India, but India's efforts in this arena are important to the rest of the world, as you just noted. And certainly, as we saw in the meeting of the Quad leaders, a collaboration in creating that focus in STEM education particularly is something that is also relevant to the strategic relationships between our countries. And so we wish you great luck in all that you have undertaken on your portfolio, but we also offer you our support and our partnership in achieving the ambitious goals that you have set forward for your nation. We look forward to working with you, Minister. And again, I want to just say thank you. I know that you have a very busy schedule, and we deeply appreciate your joining us today to be part of this important conversation at the India Ideas Summit. Minister, thank you so much, and be well.
Welcome everyone for our discussion on skills for an evolving world, how US-India higher education partnerships can change the world as part of USIBC's India Ideas Summit 2021. I'm Amy Reagan Morehouse, Senior Vice President of Trailhead Go-to-Market at Salesforce, And this is really a crucial discussion for this moment, not only for Salesforce, but for lots of other companies operating throughout the world today. We have a great discussion. I'm thrilled to have Dr. Renu Khator here with us, Chancellor of the University of Houston System and President of the University of Houston. Before we get into our discussion, I just want to highlight a few statistics for us all. There was a recent IDC report that showed that 9.3 million Salesforce jobs globally are going to be needed by 2026. That's a lot of new jobs. And out of that, 1.9 million of those jobs will be in India. So that's just Salesforce. And we also recently commissioned a study with RAND Europe, and it shows that the digital skills gap is actually hitting quite an inflection point. Companies are facing new challenges in this digital first world, and there just aren't enough people with the right skills for these companies to power their transformation now and in the future. And if we look at this digital skills gap, it comes at a cost. 14 out of the G20 countries could miss out on 11.5 trillion cumulative GDP growth if we don't take action and try to solve this problem. Now at Salesforce, I'm pleased that we're doing our bit. With Trailhead, our free learning platform, and Trailhead Academy, our education services, we're helping everyone and anyone learn the skills of the future, earn resume-worthy credentials, connect with others in our Trailblazer community, and help them create pathways to successful jobs in the Salesforce platform. In fact, our Salesforce India team, we've created a skilling program that we internally refer to it as the One India Talent Program to help students, the unemployed, working professionals, and people from diverse backgrounds learn these skills. We hope to help them upskill and cross-skill so that they can have their chance in these Salesforce jobs in India. In connection with that, we've also signed an MOU with the ITES Sector Skill Council under NASSCOM, and we've pledged to skill 100,000 people by 2024. And we've separately signed another MOU with the National Skills Development Corporation for another skilling initiative. With the Future Skill Prime portal, we have made accessible our developer content so that anyone can skill up and become a Salesforce developer. We are working with over 300 colleges, and so far in 2021, we've already had 20,000 students sign up and embrace this program. We're working across many states in India, and we look forward to expanding our reach to skill up Indians everywhere. But with that context from a business perspective and a demand perspective, I am thrilled to introduce today our speaker. She is a formidable icon, Dr. Renu Khator, as I mentioned, Chancellor, University of Houston System, and President of the University of Houston. She is the first foreign-born president of the university and only the second woman to have ever held this position. Dr. Khator is also the first Indian American to lead a major research university in the United States. Prior to moving here, Dr. Khator earned her bachelor's degree in India from the Kanpur University in liberal arts. Soon afterwards, she received her master's and her PhD in political science and political administration from Purdue University. She has received many awards over the length of her career. She was inducted into the Texas Women's Hall of Fame and has received several awards for her academic leadership as well. In fact, she was awarded the Pravisi Bharatiya Sanman from the President of India, which is the highest honor that can be awarded to an overseas Indian. Thank you, Dr. Khator, for joining us here today.
Here today.
So I'd like to start with maybe a bit of a personal question. There are a lot of young women there in India and in Texas who see you as a role model, particularly those who are interested in education. Now, I'm curious if you could share a little bit about your journey to such a prestigious role in such a prestigious university system. and also any advice you might have for them as they're starting their path.
Well, Amy, that's a pretty intense, loaded question. I feel I'm very blessed to be where I am. I was born in Uttar Pradesh, in Farrukhabad, and very proud of my my heritage, my culture, and my journey. I never thought I would be in the United States, and definitely never thought I would be holding this position, which I'm in this position now for 14 years. However, life has its own interesting turns and twists. So I got all my education from Hindi medium schools and Hindi medium college in Farrukhabad, all girls college as well. And I finished my bachelor's degree when I was 17 years old. And at that point in time, it was time to leave my town, Farrukhabad, and I went to Allahabad University to do my master's. But then in 9 months, my father arranged my marriage to someone who was studying in the United States. So, the same day I found out that my arranged marriage was being arranged in a way. The same day we were engaged, and in 10 days we were married. In another 10 days, I was here in the United States of America in West Lafayette, Indiana at Purdue University, because that's where my husband was doing his PhD. The only problem was that I had a dream, a very strong dream, and the dream was that I wanted education. Just because I just loved books, I loved studying. It had nothing to do with my wanting a career. I didn't even think that would be possible because I just didn't see anybody in my community, in my caste, in my family working, and a woman working. So I didn't even think that was possible, but I wanted to do it just because I enjoyed it so much. So I asked my husband that I wanted to attend the university. The major problem was I didn't know English. And so he took me to Purdue University graduate office, and there he translated while I talked about, I pleaded to the graduate advisor that I have done my bachelor's and I wanted my master's. And he said, but you're only 18 years old. And I said, I know, but I finished my degree and I need to go for master's program. I don't know whatever happened, but he thought I was so stubborn that I would not leave his office. So he decided, he said, okay, I have, this is the best I can do for you. No promise of admission, no even promise, but I'll let you sit in 2 classes and we'll see what happens, because he was absolutely certain that I would, just wither away. I would fade away from there. However, I just needed a little window open, and I would tell you that I taught myself English. I had grammar, of course. We all had to learn grammar in India, but in Farrukhabad, I didn't have exposure to English at that time. So I watched 8 hours of television a day. I Love Lucy was my show that I could follow, Dick Van Dyke, and some of these old shows, slapstick comedy. However, by the end of the semester, I had both A's, and I had highest marks, but I can tell you how difficult that semester was. I wrote 8 drafts of every paper that I had to do, and we had to do paper every week because it was a graduate class with 15 students. I mean, I just don't even know if I was breathing, sleeping, eating, or what. But at the end of the day, I did get my remarks, my marks in my paper. And the committee sat and said, what do we do with her now? Because she has already proven. So they gave me admission. And here I was, 19 years old, now studying master's at Purdue University in political science, another year, and I finished my master's. And as I say many times, the rest is history. So life gives you turns and twists. Then I went to, of course, I did PhD, and then my husband and I, we both took job at the University of South Florida in Tampa, Florida. And there they gave me a job because they wanted my husband so bad. He's a fellow in engineering, and they gave me a 9-month job. So that's where I started. However, from there, every 2 years, I got a promotion, whether it was academic or whether it was administrative. But 10 years, I did all of my professorship, assistant professor, associate, full professor. And then I was asked if I was interested in leading the faculty senate. And I did that. And from there, I got in administration. Then I was a department head, dean, the provost, senior vice president. And then I came to Houston as the president and chancellor. In 150 years of Texas's history, they've never had a woman chancellor. So it was a good test. However, against the normal tenure of 5 to 6 years for research university presidents, now I am in my 14th year finishing that. So I think Houston and Texas suits me. And I think I love what I do here, the environment here, the people here. In 14 years, this university is at a very different place. It was not on any national list, and now it's a tier 1 institution with Phi Beta Kappa, with all of the accolades, incredible social mobility. And Amy, you talked about upskilling. We are here in the energy capital of the world, and as things are changing from energy, just the oil and gas, to really energy transition, our challenge here is how do we keep Houston and the workforce globally competitive in the field of energy creation, innovation, but transitions, first of all. And, there have been so many job losses. So our one challenge has been, how do we give a different skill or upskill people, those who have actually been out of the market, but also those who are coming in. So we had to completely revise our curriculum in that sense. And we started offering something actually quite interesting, which is not even a full course, full degree. It's not even full certificate. We decided we would start offering what we call badges or micro-credentialing. And those are 15 credit hours, because many times people who've lost jobs have been out of, the academic setting for 20 years or so, just feel overwhelmed going back into the academy to join a degree program or something. So we have 15 credit hour badges or micro credentials that are stackable, and they are all in these very cutting edge fields. You have in cybersecurity, data analytics, and things of that nature, where you do 15 credit hours. And most of the time people will immediately start the second badge. And once you do 3 badges, you get a belt, which is like a course. And you can just keep on stacking them in different areas. And that way you can, earn your certificate, earn your degree, and, get into the workforce, in the new workforce. So we are constantly very conscious about that. There are many other things we are doing, because Amy, if you know, the University of Houston is really not a university where where people come thinking they're entitled to education. I mean, a lot of students who come to us really think that they cannot do college. A lot of them are at risk. I mean, we have students from every race and every religion, and of course, 143 countries. We like to give opportunities. We like to make sure that they can get back and be a very productive member of the society. So we are very highly ranked in social mobility ranking. So it's quite one thing to have your degree, and if you're coming from a very privileged and entitled family with all the resources, and then you get your degree and you're successful, well, that's one story. But it's quite another story when you're coming from a family where that has not necessarily been trajectory. And now you get your degree and you're transforming not just yourself, but the entire generation. I mean, the social impact, the distance between what a student brings to us and what a student leaves is what is called the social mobility, how we make you move up in the social rankings. And the University of Houston ranks extremely high, the highest definitely in Texas. And I believe the last ranking we had was 39th in the country. So
Wow.
we take a lot of pride in that
Yes.
and in what we do here. And that's what makes me very happy because, Amy, I always remind myself that I got chances. I had people who mentored me, who helped me, who opened windows for me. And now it's my time and my obligation to open windows and doors for others, be part of their journey of life, help them realize their dreams. So that's what makes me happy, keeps me here.
It's so inspiring to hear your story, and we are very like-minded in the fact that education can be such a social mobility asset to an individual. And I just love hearing your story of flexibility, curiosity, tenacity, all of that you brought to growing your career. And, you did speak about your time in the India university system. I'm curious if there's lessons learned from Houston that you would sort of recommend or might, see a pathway as India opens and expands their higher education sector.
So, Amy, I've been involved at a very different level, but have been involved in India's education policy for quite some time. I was in Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's, advisory council, and then now I have been part of the effort by Prime Minister Modi to bring 20 institutions in India, public and private, into world-class category. So this is the Institutes of Eminence, and I have been part of selecting those institutions and helping them guide for last 3+ years. I was extremely pleased to see India's new national education policy. I think all of the right moves there, everything from upskilling outside of college, because college is not necessarily for everybody. We have the system of community colleges in the United States where 2 years degree can really get you a very safe and secure job. However, I do believe that people should dream big always. People should dream about not just getting in the workforce, but leading the workforce. And therefore, I think everybody should have opportunities. And then you decide whatever your pathway is. And I think so. I see India's national education policy. There are aspirations to be world-class universities. There is aspirations to have enough workforce, not just to lead the future of India, but also to provide global leadership. I think it has all of the great features. Now the question is about its implementation. And I think a couple of things that I have found to be very important here in this system, I would love to see it in India. And I've always been saying one of them is private sector, really, private individuals, foundations coming and helping build great institutions. If you take the story of University of Houston, we've just finished a campaign to raise funds for the university, and we have raised 1.24 billion with a B for the university. Now, that kind of generosity and that kind of partnership, I think would do wonders in India. There are people who are extremely wealthy. They've got capabilities. And I think many times they have a different pathway, which may be good too, where they start their own universities. However, if the partnership becomes with existing public universities, like I've seen at the University of Houston, private individuals trusting the public university and joining hands to build something really spectacular. And I think that would be really fantastic. That's one thing. And second, I would say is which is happening now with the national education policy, which is education is not necessarily it's a one-time shot. It should be any time in life. You should be able to come back and enter the system. And upskill, yourself or get another degree. I mean, we just had a student graduate 86 years old. And we had at the same time, we had a student who graduated at 16. You should have, a university should be flexible enough, the system should be flexible enough to offer opportunities to people with all kinds of abilities, allowing them to have dreams about education, about their life, about making it better. I think that's what education is about. It's not about textbooks. It's about getting the skills that get you gratification in life, where you can earn your living, but you can also help others by either opening jobs because you're an entrepreneur, or by being CEO because running a mega corporation with thousands of jobs, or you can have your own business, small or big, where you are giving people jobs. I think all of these things are part of our life's trajectory.
I love the focus on the partnerships between governments and universities, between private sector company and universities, and private sector companies and governments. I think we're all in this together. And I think we've learned over time that we also need to build in that flexibility. So I loved what you said about people being able to re-enter the system. Like your micro credentials, people can earn badges on Trailhead and scale them up and stack them, as you say, to really having a proficiency for a job out there. But Salesforce releases software 3 times a year. So you kind of always need to be upskilling and reskilling yourself. So I love that idea of building in flexibility. If we move our focus away from the kind of classical higher education and focus more on that vocational and adult education, professional sort of training, how do you think about those different types and how they work together? And of course, how do you think about engaging different sets of people? What would be your recommendations there?
So even though I've spent my life in formal higher education in a university, I'm a strong believer in diversity of educational opportunities. So there are basically 3 different types. So one thing is certain, that high school degree is no longer enough, actually. You need to have something beyond high school, whether it is through any kind of skilling program, just because the economy is getting so digital, so global, and so technical that we just need to be putting that dream and that desire in people in elementary and middle schools, that your path is that you need to have a skill that is employable and innovation in you. Even if you start with the workforce, it doesn't matter. You got to have that entrepreneurial and innovation thing, and we have to expose them to it. So there are 3 different ways. There are the vocational programs, and I'm a big believer in those. And then there are those community college or 2-year degree program. They do a tremendous job. And then there is, of course, the traditional higher education, but even traditional higher education has to find ways to open up now with online and this whole COVID lesson and the reach, and also allowing students to really be part of the economy. I always believe very strongly, and maybe that's because I'm in Houston, where we have 6 million people living here. It's for India as a standard, it's not much, but it is. The city of Houston is larger than 37 states in the United States. So we look at it regionally, and we have very strong economy in energy, but of course the medicine. I mean, Texas Medical Center in Houston is one of the largest facility. And now with COVID, we realize that we have to think about value-based medicine. How do we take care of people's chronic conditions? And how do we take care of equity issues in health? So what if you have the world's best medical center, but if you have people who don't even have access to healthcare, well, there is something missing. And we have always thought that our job as the university is to be the engine of the regional economy. We, of course, always have here NASA, which is a great aerospace industry, one of the largest ports in the country. and we have one of the finest arts economy. So we have to take a very comprehensive look at it. And the entire university's entire plan is based on how is it that we build on regional space or regional strengths. And so those are the pillars for our plan. And we look at it three ways, Amy. One is we look at it thinking about education, and that's where we engage the vocational institutes and the community college. We have a very strong partnership with community colleges so that those students who want to go there, great. But we also make sure that they have a pathway that if they wanted to go further up, that they don't lose their time and credentialings that they are earning in community college. They can bring them seamlessly to the university. And so education is a very important part, but it has to be relevant. It has to be based, and foundation has to be where you can be a risk taker. You can think about doing things beyond the traditional boundaries. But then second thing is about the new things, the research, because the knowledge is constantly evolving. And how do we get people excited about doing research? So we have programs here with high schools, with even middle schools, where we start to expose them to these possibilities of discoveries, because that's what gives people their curiosity. But then the third part, which is very important, is very quickly, what is it that we are doing with the community? Are we serving the community? Are we making community better? Are we adding to the community? But at the same time, all of our research, what do we do with that research? Does that stay on the shelf, or do we take it to the marketplace and make it usable? There are so many projects going on here that are so exciting. If I start talking with you, I'll be probably 4 hours here. Because we say be relevant, be relevant. And so vocational programs, as well as, the skilling programs, are such an important part, because higher education cannot solve all of the problems.
I so admire how you're building pathways for people and how you're thinking about really delivering value. I'm so thankful for how you shared your own personal journey and the work that you're doing at the University of Houston. You shared many big ideas and great things for us all to consider as we work forward. And I'm really inspired for your comments and the work that you are doing and the University of Houston does to really take action at driving meaningful skill development that will fuel our economies, but also make our societies better and give people opportunities. That is such great work to be in. I know I feel that from the Salesforce perspective, and I certainly feel that from your perspective as well. So just thank you so much for being with us here on this discussion today. And yes, look forward to seeing what else you may do moving forward.
Well, thank you, Amy. I think your academy is doing an awesome job too. It's very, very important. And I'm glad to hear about all the partnerships in India. We have tremendous, many partnerships in India with India Oil to, of course, all kinds of educational programs. And we're constantly looking for opportunities and trying to see, because we are all part of the same global society. We are all part of the same problems we are trying to solve, whether it's in health or it's in conflict resolution or it's in energy, and we all have to work together across national boundaries to be able to solve some of these big problems. So, and India is just a huge place of excellent talent.
Excellent opportunity, yes.
And opportunities and talent, it's just mind-boggling to see everything. And I'm just so hopeful. India gives us all hope.
I agree. Thank you again so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Good day. This is Ed Knight. I'm the Vice Chairman of NASDAQ. And today I'm honored to introduce this year's recipient of the U.S.-India Business Council's Corporate Leadership Award, Shiv Nadar. As my fellow USIBC board member and vice chair, Milind Pant, noted, The Corporate Leadership Award recognizes outstanding leadership in promotion of the U.S.-India business and commercial relationship. Many know Shiv Nadar as a corporate visionary of the Indian IT and tech industry. Just days before Bill Gates founded Microsoft and Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak founded Apple, Mr. Nadar also started his own company in his garage. In addition to creating and founding HCL Enterprise, a $10.5 billion global organization with 176,000 professionals operating from 50 countries, Mr. Nadar also is the Chairman Emeritus and Strategic Advisor to the board of HCL Technologies, India's third largest IT services organization. Mr. Nadar is credited with being one of the pioneers of the computing and IT industry in India. Throughout his career, Mr. Nadar always acknowledged that building successful institutions is dependent on forging result-oriented partnerships and creating new knowledge. In addition to his reputation as an astute businessman and forward-thinking corporate visionary, Mr. Nadar is generous in his philanthropy and nonprofit endeavors. As of this year, he has invested over $1 billion in charitable work. One of Mr. Nadar's focuses in his philanthropic work has been on creating institutions that transform education in India, supporting the country's youth for decades to come. I am pleased and honored to be giving Mr. Nadar USIBC's annual Corporate Leadership Award. Thank you.
Dear Ed, thank you so much for the kind words. My sincere gratitude to the USIBC board, the US Chamber of Commerce, and the executive team for honoring me with the Global Leadership Award. I'm humbled to be recognized for what has been a deeply enriching journey that I embarked upon 45 years ago when I established HCL with 7 fellow founders. Thank you for this trophy. I'm delighted to share this with Mallika Srinivasan, under whose leadership tractors and farm equipment has grown to be one of the largest tractor manufacturers in the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has been an epic test for human character and determination. In the business context, organizations and leaders had to face the ultimate test of leadership and survival. HCL was born during a difficult time in the history of a young nation, at the height of emergency in our country. Through the course of the last 45 years, HCL and its employees have demonstrated extraordinary courage and capacity to adapt, innovate, often in the face of overwhelming odds. Our technology inventions and innovations have consistently helped maximize the potential of individuals, organizations, communities, and nations. My philanthropic efforts through Shiv Nadar Foundation are also anchored in the same belief of maximizing potential. The education initiatives and institutions under the foundation are focused on nourishing transformative leaders who can go to positively impact many more lives. Over the last 2 years, we have focused on leveraging our resources and technology prowess to help governments strengthen their response to the pandemic. We have improved healthcare services, helped frontline workers, and supported distressed communities. I believe HCL's is an important story to reflect upon as we emerge from this pandemic and build back for a better tomorrow. These efforts will test our resilience, our capacity to reinvent ourselves, and ability to care for the larger world. However, we must come together as countries and leaders of global business to drive the efforts that will help humanity prevail. India and the US are the world's 2 largest democracies, and are joined in this mission. I want to congratulate USIBC and the US Chamber of Commerce for the significant role they play in these efforts. With that, I want to thank everyone again for bestowing me with this honor.
Congratulations, Shiv. Shiv, yours is a classic story of a small town boy that makes it big. Born in a village in India, first startup in your 20s, and you founded HCL when you were only 31. Today, HCL is India's largest IT company with a global force. And clearly, you have navigated your company to take advantage of all the global opportunities. So here's my question. As you look to the next several decades, what do you see as the major avenues for growth for HCL? And what advice would you give your daughter, Roshni, who has taken over the reins as chairman, to be able to continue the success that you have been able to achieve over the years?
Thank you, Vijay. HCL, when it started, was only focusing on India. It became a global company in 2000. So in reality, it's only 21 years old. Ahead is ensuring that we stay global, in which India is one country and one opportunity with all the threats it comes with. The biggest benefit of being in India is some outstanding resources at exceptionally competitive costs. The problem will be always that if we have to deal with the government, it's much more cumbersome compared to the other governments. It is not that the other governments are easy, but they are easier. So the future of HCL will have to be anchoring in many locations which are low cost. From India, we have now located, we have just crossed 1,000 resources in Sri Lanka and slightly less in Vietnam. Vietnam has a very large working pool, an extremely cordial government. You know, when we expressed interest in Vietnam, because Vietnam is a very populous country. It's about 11 crores or so in population. And we find that their productivity methods are extremely good. They are very happy to learn. And 6 of the ministers came here to invite HCL to go to Vietnam. We have now established in Hanoi as well as Ho Chi Minh City. But we would prefer to go inside, you know, where the population will be less expensive. We have to look ahead. Every country which is worth its, every company which is worth its while has a leg in Vietnam. That is taking place in Sri Lanka as well. So use these as resources, build more resources base in Europe, in Mexico, maybe even in Canada, because Canada rural cost will be 50% of the cost of either California or New York, where the bulk of our resources are located at the moment. Roshni has been chairman for a while, and I'd been coaching her from behind. Now I have to let go. And she's taken over extremely well. The advice which I gave her was that just face up to tough periods. And then the normalcy will look easy. Because in any given 10 years, 7 years will be normal. 3 years, probably every alternate year will be difficult to very good. So it's important that get the maximum out of the very good years, defend yourself in the tough years, and in normal period, try to optimize your resources with opportunities and threats.
I'm delighted to present this year's US-India Business Council Corporate Leadership Award. This award recognizes outstanding leadership for promotion and partnership of US and Indian businesses. This year's award recipient is Malika Srinivasan, Chairman and Managing Director of Tractors and Farm Equipment Limited. Malika takes forward the legacy, the rich legacy of a grandfather and father, and she's an outstanding entrepreneur and business leader. Malika has a deep understanding and empathy for a customer, the farmers of India, who are the largest segment of Indian population. Malika has been applying innovation and technology to help farmers increase crop yields and continue to make life better for them and their families. She's been recognized in multiple ways, including by the Government of India. It's an honor to serve with Malika on the board on behalf of the USIBC and the Global Board of Directors. I'm delighted to present this year's award to Malika Srinivasan.
Thank you, Milind. I'm honored and delighted to receive this year's Global Corporate Leadership Award from the USIBC. For over 4.5 decades now, the USIBC has, with deep conviction in the natural connect between the world's largest democracies, fostered trade and commercial ties, and today is a voice of credibility with both governments and businesses in India and the US. TAFE aspires to be a global player in the farm machinery industry and a contributor to the larger mission of global food security and economic prosperity for the farming community. As a long-term strategic investor in America, the USIBC has provided a great opportunity to interact with and benefit from the thought leaders of American businesses and its policymakers. The forum's deliberations have served to strengthen my conviction that partnership between the US and Indian economies and businesses has the unparalleled promise of benefiting millions of people in the US, India, and the world. Thank you very much, USIBC.
So congratulations, Malika. Malika, you have been a stalwart in your industry, not only leading TAF to the global stage, but also ensuring that the common man, the farmer, comes along with India's growth. So here's my question. Can you share with us a bit about what going global has been like? Why is it important for TAF, and why you are so invested in ensuring your customers, that is the farmers, benefit from India's rise? Can you also speak a little bit about things you look forward to in the growing US-India commercial relationship?
Thank you, Vijay. Let me begin with the Indian farming community. India has 145 million people engaged in farming. Close to 80% of them are small farmers with a holding of less than 2 hectares, accounting for almost 47% of the land. Around the world, and so too in India, the demographics of hunger are tightly linked to rural poverty, and 70% of global poverty is represented by the poverty of smallholder farmers who are dependent on their agricultural income. India's rise is not complete without the prosperity of her small farmers. Around the world too, 90% of the 570 million farms are family managed, and in Asia and sub-Saharan Africa, these farms produce 80% of the food, while 84% of them are less than 2 hectares. Smallholder farms hold the key to global food security, and this has been our area of focus. For me personally, it's been gratifying to be part of the journey of developing innovative, relevant, cost-effective, indigenously developed technology solutions to address mechanization requirements that increase the yields of small farms. Alongside the development of these products, TAFE's core philosophy since inception has been to offer, as corporate social responsibility, adaptive research and extension services, and propagate an integrated model of farming that will enhance farm incomes. Over the last 2 years, it's been heartening to have been able to successfully demonstrate the application and use of a digital platform, a farmer-to-farmer platform that enables small farmers to access farm mechanization through price discovery and better asset utilization of the fleets on the ground at a very reasonable cost. The demonstrated success of this, I do believe, has the potential to give a catalytic shift to mechanization policy and to scale up for an acceleration in yields and earnings of small farms. And now, Vijay, with respect to your question on the global play, TAFE is today the second largest volume player in the less than 100 HP segment worldwide, and we continue to evolve technologies, and we do believe that we have a value proposition that can play a role in the larger vision of food security and agricultural development, particularly in emerging markets. This has inspired us to go global. Partnerships have played an important role, and we've invested as a long-term strategic investor where it is complementary to our own strengths, in the conviction that we can work together for development of agriculture and its growth, not just in the US and India, but in markets outside the US and India as well. A feature of our global journey, given the markets and the sectors that we work in, has been a deep engagement with governments and a long-term orientation that we are committed to. The disruption, of course, caused by the pandemic has certainly made us revisit our supply chain hypothesis, and country strategies are having to be tweaked, on occasion dramatically changed, to meet local aspirations, propelled by trade relations and the emerging geopolitical environment. In the context of the changing geopolitical environment and priorities, strong commercial relations between our two open democracies is vital. Recent interactions between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden has set the tone for greater engagement. The pandemic and the cooperation to overcome this pandemic has brought our two countries closer together. The Quad initiative, with its focus on strengthening Indo-Pacific ties, provides opportunities to foster closer strategic and thereby commercial relationships. We look forward to enhanced cooperation and collaboration in the areas of supply chain as they get rebalanced in the wake of the pandemic insights, manufacturing cooperation, and skilling, covering the sectors of electronic hardware, healthcare, defense and security, infrastructure, and education. An area that is close to my heart would be investments in India's startup ecosystem with respect to transformation of the value chain in agriculture. All these areas provide great opportunities for impactful collaboration and the conviction that US and India are natural allies and long-term partners is only getting stronger. We look forward to an acceleration in the commercial ties between the US and India. Thank you.
Thank you both, Shiv and Malika, our awardees and our presenters.
Hi, I'm Texas Senator John Cornyn. I want to wish all my friends at USIBC a warm welcome to your 46th Annual General Meeting and Ideas Summit. I wish I could be with you there in person. I was looking forward to sitting down with Minister Goyal, but hopefully we'll be able to connect in the future. As co-founder of the Senate India Caucus, I know firsthand the importance of a strong relationship between the United States and India, and I'm proud to see how our ties have strengthened over the recent years. USIBC has been an invaluable ally, and I look forward to seeing what other opportunities today's summit will bring us. Thanks again for allowing me to join you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. We're grateful for your leadership and your message this morning. My thanks also to the USIBC for continuing to strengthen the US-India strategic partnership at this inflection point, building on the goodwill that has been generated by how the two countries came together as friends in India's time of need this summer. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Minister Piyush Goyal, as you know, one of India's preeminent leaders who's charting India's course through what has been an incredibly challenging time across the globe. Minister Goyal is responsible for numerous high-profile portfolios in the Indian government. He is the Minister of Commerce and Industry, Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, and Textiles. Previously, he served in India's Minister of Railways, among many other responsibilities. Minister Goyal has played a stellar role in enhancing India's competitiveness, exports, and the stature on the world stage. But today, I'd like to highlight his pivotal role in India's COVID relief efforts. Under Minister Goyal's leadership, Indian Railways launched oxygen express trains that ran on express green corridors throughout the length and breadth of the country, ensuring that much needed liquid medical oxygen was delivered across to people who needed it most. Recognizing India's dependency on imported PPE that resulted in acute shortages early in the pandemic, Mr. Goyal led efforts to develop an indigenous PPE manufacturing ecosystem in India. In less than 2 years, India has emerged as the second largest PPE manufacturer in the world. There is a wonderful Sanskrit phrase that Prime Minister Narendra Modi referenced during COVID, and it epitomizes India's outlook and generous spirit. Vasudev Kutumbakam. Roughly translated, it means that the entire world is one family. Not only is the Indian government carrying out its own unprecedented large-scale vaccination drive with 900 million doses so far, Indian leaders, including Minister Goyal, have actively supported efforts to supply COVID-19 vaccines to over 75 nations. Mr. Goyal, as you know, the US Chamber of Commerce organized the Global Task Force for Pandemic Response earlier this year, and Amway played its role along with companies like Microsoft, IBM, Accenture, among many others. Mr. Goyal, I appreciate your commitment to strengthening US-India strategic partnership and advancing the commercial relationship. Thank you also for being a passionate advocate of US-India Free Trade Agreement. I'd also like to thank you for your leadership of the US-India CEO Forum, which Amway has been very proud to be a part of. Mr. Goyal, all of us today, this morning, this evening in India, we look forward to listening to your remarks in a few minutes. For now, I will turn it over to Arun Kumar, Chairman and CEO of KPMG India.
Piyush Goyal, let me add my welcome to that of Milan's. It's really a privilege to be here with you at the USIBC India Ideas Summit. I want to say, speaking personally, I really value the relationship that we've built, starting with my first meeting with you in mid-2014 when I served in the US administration. Your dynamism and your commitment to progress I've found to be consistent and very stimulating. Today we meet in the context, the backdrop of the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden. And when they met last month, they reiterated the foundations of the Indo-US relationship, building a shared partnership to ensure regional security, to promote common interests in the Indo-Pacific region, enhancing trade and investment, very importantly, leading the battle against COVID-19, which was mentioned by Milind, and other public health challenges, and jointly working to scale up climate action. So in that context, let me request you, Honorable Minister, to kindly share your keynote remarks with us this evening on the US-India partnership and the shared potential. How do you see the relationship evolving? What is your view on the actions needed to carry forward these common objectives? Over to you, Minister Goyal.
Thank you very much, my good friend, Mr. Milind Pant, for your very generous remarks. Always a pleasure to interact with you, Arun Kumarji. I also very fondly recollect our several meetings since 2014. All the distinguished participants at the 46th annual meeting and the India Idea Summit organized by USIBC. My greetings to all of you. I'm really grateful to USIBC for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you. Thank you, Senator John Cornyn, for your warm words. India truly looks forward to further strengthening the relations between the US and India. At the outset, I would like to wish all of you a very happy and prosperous Navratri, celebrations over the next 9 days that we are starting today. It basically symbolizes the victory of good over evil. And it's the start of the festival season in India. I'd like to convey my best wishes to all of you and your families in the US, in India, who have joined us, and I pray for your good health and prosperity. In fact, I also pray that we win over this war against the virus very soon. Today is also another very important milestone. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has completed 20 years of uninterrupted public service as the head of a duly elected democratic government, first as Chief Minister of Gujarat from 7th of October 2001 until May of 2014, and since then for the last 7.5 years as the Prime Minister of India. His untiring efforts have accorded India a very special status in the global economy, global community of nations. The world now looks at India as a reliable and trusted partner and a driving force of the world economy. The USIBC, and if I may say, you represent unity, you represent strength, you represent inclusion, you represent bold businesses and a commitment towards this US-India relationship. Has acted as a bridge to build and continue to reinvigorate this partnership for the last 46 years. Over 2,000 US companies who are successfully running operations in India are testimony to this time-tested friendship. My compliments to the USIBC for all the wonderful work you have done and for the theme of today's interaction, from recovery to resurgence. It very aptly describes today's situation. Our relationship has developed to a global strategic partnership based on our convergence on bilateral, regional, and global issues. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Joe Biden have been proactive in strengthening this relation. The visit of Prime Minister Modi to the US earlier last month for the Quad Leaders Summit was very fruitful. In fact, their very first in-person meeting. 5 T's, in a way, define the Quad and the relationship that we are building up. Tradition, talent, trade, technology, and trusteeship. As President Biden said, together, the US and India must show the world that our two great and diverse democracies can deliver for people everywhere. This close partnership between the US and India is central to a free, open, inclusive, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. COVID-19 pandemic highlighted that supply chains should not be based only on cost, but rely heavily on trust. India wants to focus in areas where it has a competitive advantage to become a bigger stakeholder in global value chains. The increasing trust deficit amongst some geographies in the post-COVID world calls for a resilient India-US partnership. India, recognized as a major defense partner of the US, can also become a big market for the US companies. Multiple dialogues across areas of energy, health, trade, and innovation can help us work together for improving our business-to-business engagement and, of course, providing to the people of both countries opportunities and better services. India and the US are working together to build resilient supply chains in advanced technology areas, but we need to explore several more areas. Today, India has attracted the attention of the world. We are the most attractive destination for investment, with FDI flows into India growing year on year for the last 8 years. We have played the role of the pharmacy of the world and are helping countries bring down healthcare costs. The world is looking towards India for its openness, opportunity, and growth. Our theme at the World Expo 2020 in the UAE. We are currently negotiating free trade agreements and comprehensive economic partnerships with like-minded nations like Australia, the EU, UK, UAE, amongst others. We have focused on strengthening 24 sectors of the Indian manufacturing economy, where we have competitive and comparative edge over other countries. We do believe that we are looking at a national infrastructure pipeline which will provide huge opportunities of over 1.4 trillion US dollars, boosting investments in infrastructure, for which we have provided an enabling environment with more liberal foreign direct investment rules. We have reduced corporate tax to amongst the lowest in the world. We have a very simplified tax regime, a single window clearance mechanism for all approvals, a huge land bank of available land to set up manufacturing bases or industrial clusters. We have removed and sorted out legacy issues of the past, like the retrospective income tax law, and in fact are today encouraging invention and innovation, research and development, and our entrepreneurs are setting new records. Today, we have the world's third largest startup ecosystem, boasting over 60 unicorns, of which more than 20 became unicorns in the last 6 months. We have introduced the production-linked incentive scheme to encourage large-scale manufacturing in India of high-quality products at affordable and competitive prices. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's decisive leadership, India today is set on the path of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant India, an India that works with other countries from a position of strength as an equal for reciprocal benefits. We are not closing the doors of India to world engagement. In fact, we are opening them wider so that we can expand the two-way trade, increase engagement both through businesses and at the people-to-people level, both in merchandise and in services. Encourage investments across nations, from the US to India, from India to the US, and with the rest of the world. We are leapfrogging from Make in India to Make in India for the world. We are strengthening our domestic industry and will, in the future, strengthen scale and the quality of production in India, along with our cost competitiveness. Brand India conveys innovation, intention, and the true image of the new India being crafted under Prime Minister Modi. I think the roadmap for the future relations between the US and India has moved from addressing the problems of the pandemic to climate change, to partnership in innovation, technology, defense, strategic ties, boosting the service sector, the IT sector, and several more areas where together the US and India has a leadership role to play. We have to leverage our complementary strengths on technology, finance, production, supply, and the emerging startup ecosystem with fintechs, edtech, health services playing a lead role. Our cooperation in space also has tremendous potential. Low-cost space vision, sharing satellite data to monitor climate change, disaster response, and our preparedness to mitigate problems of the future are some areas of mutual cooperation. Electronic manufacturing, pharma and healthcare, biotechnology, all of these also hold tremendous potential. Ladies and gentlemen, India looks at the US of A as our natural ally, and together, through our shared vision, we can truly become partners of progress for the prosperity of people both in India and the United States of America. My warmest wishes and regards to all of you on this program today. I pray for your good health, safety, and well-being. Namaste. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister, for those very compelling and persuasive remarks. In the little time we have, I thought I might pick up on a couple of points that you made. One was wonderful to hear of the vigorous activity you have on the trade agreement front, and you mentioned interest in working with like-minded countries. So between the US and India, the current trade is now at a very healthy, about 148 billion of trade. You yourself have recently raised the ambition of mutual trade, which is very important because all these things start with raising ambition. In this, it's also great to hear that the Trade Policy Forum is going to be revived, which has been a very productive forum for conversation and mutual understanding. So on this overall, I wanted to ask whether you could share with us your view on a trade agreement and or bilateral trade priorities. Where do you see convergence between the US and India, and what are the ingredients from your point of view for successful, fair, and transparent trade deal between the two countries?
Arun Kumarji, India and the US have huge complementarities. We don't really have any competition between the two. We can collaborate on so many areas, some of which I listed earlier, and really strengthen each other's economies. The US has huge investment surpluses, which can be used in India for promoting infrastructure investments, also to make India a manufacturing base to help you grow your economy, to help provide goods and services to you at affordable, competitive prices. For example, India can bring down the US healthcare costs very, very significant. We can help you bring your technology, your innovation, your new research outcomes, produce them in India at very competitive prices, leveraging on our manpower, our skilled manpower. In fact, Indians are working all over the world in very leadership top roles in corporates. They're working in NASA, they're working in R&D across the world. There's huge pool of talent in India. Leveraging that, the US can benefit significantly. We, on our part, have significant products and services to offer to the US, which are needed by the US economy. Apart from pharmaceutical products and healthcare, we can provide trained paramedical people. We are providing many technical people in the software side in different areas where we are already collaborating in a big way. Our textiles, our gem and jewelry, our leather products, all of these hold tremendous potential in the US and can help both Indian economy and the US economy support each other on equitable and fair terms. India, as I said, is a trusted partner and ally of the US. And I do believe that going forward, it is in the interests of both countries to strengthen our strategic partnership into a more comprehensive economic and trade partnership also.
Thank you. If I might pick up on a topic that was not part of your remarks, this is about the states. Prime Minister Modi from the beginning has encouraged a cooperative and competitive federalism, actually starting with his own experience in building a competitive state. And the states, in that view, would be the engines of development. So what is your vision of where Indian states can grow, and what do they need to prioritize in terms of a reform-oriented focus? Your own ministry has taken a lead in the whole ease of doing business, promoting competitiveness between states. So any thoughts that you would like to share with us? The USIBC has focused on state-level engagement because US industry needs to be connected with the state governments. Would love to hear from you.
Arunji, by and large, this has been a government which has focused largely on reforms. In fact, our mantra is reform, transform, and perform. And over the last 7.5 years, Prime Minister Modi has worked on a twin track, making it easier to do business through reforms on the business front, improving the lives of the poorest of the poor so that the marginalized sections of society have a better quality of life, which we call ease of living. We have been working on creating that enabling environment and expanding our infrastructure so that the foundation of a strong economy and the foundations to strengthen our manufacturing base are developed. Simultaneously, in terms of healthcare, in terms of promoting innovation, our startups, in terms of our strides in financial inclusion, in ensuring quality of life for the people of India, rapid progress has been made in the last 7 years. States have to join in these efforts and have a very important role to play. By and large, they are aligned with the central government policies. And while we may have our political differences with some states, center and the states work hand in hand to implement these policies, bring the reforms on the ground for the benefit of businesses and people. There are several subjects which are also on the concurrent list where we have to work together, like labor, where the role of the states is very, very critical. We are constantly in dialogue with the states to identify the gaps in policies and infrastructure and logistics planning so that we can improve the competitiveness to do business in states. We are ranking them for ease of doing business, ranking them for their support to encourage new businesses, to encourage startups. In fact, we recently had a week which was called Vanijya Saptah, Commerce Week, where events were organized all over the country in partnerships with the states and where every district of the country participated. So it's a very collaborative effort, and Prime Minister Modi very strongly believes center and states have to work together for eventually reaching progress and prosperity to the people of India.
Thank you, Minister. So I think that brings us to the end of our session. You covered a wide range and you packed a lot of material into your comments. So Piyushi, thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you very much. Lovely talking to you.
There were many working parts in that initial order that came in on how we were going to do it, how we were going to pack up these ventilators, how we were going to secure freight space in what was a very impacted freight market as well.
We not only committed the logistics and the supply chain of getting ventilators to India as fast as possible, but we also further committed the expertise of our team on the ground to do this installation, the configuration, and the service.
Also the back-end support staff like biomedical engineers to maintain and troubleshooting the ventilators. A large quantity were new models, so we had to train more than 1,000 healthcare professionals from different hospitals in a very short time. We provide the different format of trainings that include live Zoom trainings, Ventilator Academy website, and we also prepare 27 pre-recorded training video.
And we really felt that with the time zones, we were handing the baton, and we as Medtronic were working 24 hours in order to get ventilators into India as fast as possible.
And if we were able to get even one more life saved, it actually is a significant benefit to the patient population. So that's what kept me going, and that's what kept a lot of us going.
Greetings to you all. I hope and pray that you and your families are safe. I'm thankful to USIBC for giving me this platform to share my thoughts on a very pertinent topic of financial inclusion, which has tremendous potential not only towards driving development in India, but more so in creating sustainable economic stability in one of Asia's largest economies. When I think of financial inclusion in India, pictures of Indians from across different walks of life, different geographies, and many different cultures flash across my mind. The massive diversity of India's more than 1.3 billion people comprises of various facets. It includes the women, homemakers, workers, entrepreneurs who strive to become financially independent, farmers and agriculturists who work hard to produce crops and contribute to food security, families that aspire to send their children for higher education and fulfill life goals, small and medium enterprises that provide massive employment opportunities, and innovators who experiment to create more environment-friendly solutions and products. Reaching out to these diverse groups of people with the right opportunities and solutions is only possible with technological innovation whose wheels are already set in motion by India's fintech sector. India is now on the brink of a financial revolution with ever-growing fintech adoption by consumers across geographies. With progressive regulatory policies and support by the Indian government, our fintech players are now being fortified to scale innovation to cater to the financial requirements of its people. Credit growth, we all know, is closely interlinked to financial inclusion because of its high correlation to GDP growth. Credit growth rate in India has been 2 to 3 times, retail credit growth in particular has been 2 to 3 times of GDP growth rate in India. You look at the available opportunity now, not only does India have 400 million population below the age of 25, even in terms of our credit penetration. Take for example, dwellings per 1,000 in India, we are at 220 versus for example, 420 per 1,000 in the US. Vehicle ownership, it is 70 per 1,000 in India versus 810 in the US. So that tells us about the huge opportunity to create penetration into retail lending. Now, the impact of technology on financial inclusion through credit growth can actually be evidenced by the following facts. One, with the use of technology and credit information for lending, credit opportunities are now available at the click of a button. Only a decade back, even small loans used to take days for sanctioning and involved cumbersome manual processes. But today, small ticket loans can be accessed within a few hours and many a times instantly. With payments becoming multi-channel, 1 million UPI transactions 3 years ago has actually risen to almost 3 billion transactions a month. Consumer credit space is on a phenomenal growth trajectory with various banking and non-banking units now offering new products to new segments of consumers. No wonder then that India's retail credit industry has grown by a phenomenal 10x in the last decade. Approximately 370 million consumers are ever credit served and 180 million are currently credit active. Credit penetration has improved from 3 to almost 18 to 20% now in the last decade. There is scope for further improvement as we look at developed countries are more close to 80 to 100% of their GDP. Then the third benefit, let's talk about average inquiries per month. Average inquiries have increased from 2 million per month in 2008 to almost 25 million per month in 2021. Change was not just in volume, but also in the construct in terms of serving the customer in different ways from time and value standpoints. The loan is no longer the ultimate objective. Instead, the product feature to cater to India's diverse groups is what really counted. The fourth benefit, credit information technology has helped foster trust in India's lending ecosystem, which has triggered credit opportunities for deserving consumers and driven sustainable financial inclusion. We call this information for good. Over these 2 decades, we have touched countless lives by enabling opening of more than 1.2 billion loan accounts, amounting to disbursements of over 112 trillion rupees worth of retail credit. We have helped drive access to finance for small businesses by assisting credit institutions in opening of over 45 million MSME loan accounts, amounting to sanctioning of more than 80 trillion rupees for commercial credit for business purposes. Over 700 million number of loans have been disbursed between 2004 and 2020, with a consolidated loan amount disbursed ranging to over rupees 140 trillion. Credit information technology has played a pivotal role in driving access to much needed financial opportunities during the post-pandemic aftermath. The post-COVID-19 circumstances have transformed the credit industry significantly by compelling digitalization across business processes, and this is going to further continue through the following decade. Credit information sites coupled with technology have helped the credit industry implement and drive several relief schemes like moratorium on loans, the ECLGS scheme for MSMEs and individuals, and the EPGS as well. This momentum of digital lending and use of data analytics-based solutions to drive access to finance for deserving consumers will only get stronger through 2021 and beyond. As we progress on this journey of financial inclusion through technology, there are some fundamental triggers which further need to be built into the ecosystem to speed up and smoothen its path. Number one, in order to tap disruptive potential of technology for driving access to finance for the diverse set of audiences in India, the information infrastructure needs to be fortified further with varied source of data, what we call alternative data in modern parlance. Business corporates, including micro, small and medium enterprises and consumers, need to gain access to credit more easily and quickly from credit providers. The existing information asymmetry between credit providers and potential borrowers makes it unnecessarily difficult for a credit provider to accurately assess and price the risk associated with lending to a potential borrower. The lack of readily available alternative data also contributes to the difficulty of making such assessments, but further inhibits lenders from serving underserved segments of the population and those that are currently credit invisible. This drives credit providers to select borrowers who default in their payments and to ignore borrowers who would not have defaulted in their repayments had credit been extended to them. This causes credit providers to exclude large segments of the population because traditional credit data does not exist for them. This will be rectified only when credit information companies have the ability to access and use non-traditional sources of information pertaining to enhanced risk intelligence to lenders directly or through the emerging fintech intermediaries. The recent move by the Reserve Bank of India on the account aggregator ecosystem development truly needs to be applauded, as the same shall be beneficial for all the players in India's financial ecosystem, including credit information companies. CICs should be participants in the AA ecosystem in order to facilitate faster and cheaper access to credit. The AA ecosystem enables lenders to instantaneously access the asset side and liability side information of a potential customer with consent. For example, Currently, a bank might not have information on a customer's mutual fund holdings, demat account holdings, balances with other banks, etc., which are all critical information for underwriting loans. Now with the AA network, a bank can access this information instantaneously along with the credit information which the bureaus have of the borrowers. This levels a playing field between data-rich incumbent banks and newer entrants. This combined prowess will also enable fully digital underwriting. Since AAs can retrieve data in standardized digital formats, they are enablers for fully digital underwriting for banks. The fintech revolution as well in India is at a tipping point. Use of technology reduces operating costs for providing services, particularly in the rural and unbanked areas, and will drive the growth through financial inclusion. With banks and other financial institutions using methods such as branchless banking, micro ATMs, and electronic payment services, these modes enable reach to all sections of the society. When supported well by all the stakeholders in the ecosystem, it can unlock the opportunities that exist in India's economy to drive access to finance for the diverse groups of people. With availability of easy and affordable access to financial opportunities, millions of people who earlier remained excluded, such as marginalized sections of the society, women, laborers, small farmers and entrepreneurs, innovators and creators of sustainable products and solutions, and many other people would be able to fulfill their aspirations while contributing to sustainable economic growth for India. The vision of Mahatma Gandhi, whose 152nd birth anniversary we just celebrated on October 2nd this year, was to wipe out every tear out of every eye. Technology-enabled financial policies, programs, and solutions have the tremendous potential to translate this vision of the father of our nation into reality. I leave you with these thoughts and once again thank USIBC for giving me this opportunity to speak today. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper, and our state understands the importance of participation in our global economy. We're proud to have more than 60 Indian companies located here. Since 2007, Indian companies have announced the creation of more than 6,200 jobs and nearly $420 million of investment in North Carolina. With our skilled workforce, strong infrastructure, and educational institutions, North Carolina is a great place for businesses to grow and succeed. We're known for being a leader in IT, biotechnology, manufacturing, and so much more. Our talented workers are ready to take on the new jobs thanks to our state's workforce training programs. From community college training and business partnerships with colleges across the state, we're preparing North Carolinians to take on the jobs of today and tomorrow. And speaking of the jobs of tomorrow, our state has become a leader in clean energy initiatives. We're committed to protecting our environment from the impacts of climate change, and we've set ambitious goals to transition to a clean energy economy. We're grateful for our close trade partnership that helps us ensure that both North Carolina and the world's largest democracy can continue to succeed. We want to work together with India and partners around the world so we can move toward a brighter, more prosperous future together. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Governor Cooper. USIBC's Destination India and Destination America series are focused on boosting investment into states, and we're excited by the growth of Indian investment into North Carolina and across the United States. In fact, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, through our Federation of State and Local Chambers, works every day across every sector to strengthen and support the business community and to grow economic opportunity across the United States. That economic growth is increasingly tied to overseas markets and foreign investment. No one understands this better or is a more passionate advocate for our global business agenda than our next speaker, the President and CEO of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Suzanne Clark. As we face a world of unprecedented challenges of COVID, of climate change, or inequality, it is the business community that steps forward with the tools and technology to help solve these challenges. Under Suzanne's leadership, the U.S. Chamber has become more than a convener of important conversations. It has become one of the most powerful drivers of public-private collaboration to solve global challenges. Whether it was in the launching of the Equality of Opportunity Initiative at the U.S. Chamber to ensure that we create more opportunity for Black-owned businesses and support underinvested communities, or in addressing the global pandemic and standing up the Global Task Force on Pandemic Response during the COVID crisis in India this spring, Suzanne has engaged the tectonic challenges of our day with optimism, creativity, and pragmatism. One of her greatest qualities, aside from her great sense of humor, is that solution mindset that she brings to every problem or task. An entrepreneur at heart, having led her own business, Suzanne Clark personally understands the power of industry to be a driver of innovation, opportunity, and prosperity. And finally, if I can inject a personal note here, in the midst of the COVID crisis in India this spring, when the Chamber mobilized the massive private sector effort to support India, Suzanne made clear across the entirety of the U.S. Chamber community that there was nothing more important for the U.S. Chamber or for American business than to support India in its hour of need and fight this epic battle against the pandemic. Suzanne, it is a privilege to work for you and to have you address the U.S.-India Ideas Summit. Thank you for being such an inspiring leader and a great boss.
Thank you, Nisha. That was so kind. Solutions oriented with a sense of humor. That might be my new tagline. And it's a real privilege to work with you, Nisha, and all the expertise that you bring to the U.S. Chamber. So thank you so much. Good morning and good evening, everyone. This is my first time joining the India Ideas Summit as President and CEO of the Chamber, and I'm just delighted to be here with all of you. While I may be a new face to some of you, I know I'm preceded by the really strong reputation of the U.S.-India Business Council. At the Chamber, we're incredibly proud of USIBC's work over the last 46 years to foster strong commercial and economic ties between our countries. Very early in my tenure, I got to experience firsthand just how strong the ties that bind the U.S. and India really are. You know, and Nisha just alluded to this a second ago, but it was a Friday night back in April when a group of American CEOs and the Business Roundtable were raising alarm bells about a new COVID surge overtaking India. These CEOs, our members, were deeply concerned about the economic and humanitarian implications, as well as the well-being of the hundreds of thousands of Indians that they employ. They wanted to help quickly and meaningfully, just as India had done for us in America's darkest phase of the pandemic last year. Knowing this would require coordination between business and government, they turned to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and USIBC. And within a matter of days, we were able to get calls together with the CEOs of Accenture and Microsoft, IBM, Pfizer, FedEx, United Airlines, Deloitte, BCG, and other large U.S. companies. We engaged with top officials from the White House, the State Department, the National Security Council, and USAID, and we raised $50 million to purchase and transport supplies. We secured 1,000 ventilators and 35,000 oxygen concentrators and began shipping them to the hardest hit areas. Many of the American business leaders who joined this effort, which became the Global Task Force on Pandemic Response, are here today at the summit. Also with us are many of the Indian business leaders who rallied to America's side in our own hour of need, marshaling resources, supplying medicines, and airlifting PPE to our front lines. This is what friends do. This is what partners do. This is what allies do. We rush to help each other, not just because our economic destinies are linked, not just because we share a bond as the world's largest democracies, but because our partnership has led to genuine care, respect, and affection between the people of our nations. And it is on that foundation that we look ahead to recovering, rebuilding, and renewing our shared strength. The pandemic has tested the global economy and our citizens and continues to test them. To come out of this strong, our nations must come out of this together. From the very beginning, we have said the pandemic will not be over anywhere until it is over everywhere. And that is why the U.S. has pledged to continue sharing resources and coordinating efforts. At the recently completed Quad meeting, our countries, along with Australia and Japan, committed to ramping up vaccine production. Worldwide, 1.5 billion doses are being produced each month, and that will reach 12 billion doses by the end of the year. In the near future, there will be enough vaccines for the entire world, and India and the United States will have helped make that happen. Let's not forget, these vaccines were developed by businesses with the support of governments, and it will be businesses that continue producing, transporting, and distributing them worldwide. Together, U.S. and Indian businesses can ensure that more doses reach the world's least developed countries, and soon. The private sector is critical to restore human and economic health, which is one reason why in America, business is the most trusted institution above all others, including government. And it's why the Chamber carries forward its mission with a sense of pride and responsibility. We exist to help businesses succeed so they can serve their communities and our world. Let me offer just 3 examples of how the Chamber is supporting American businesses and in turn strengthening the U.S.-India economic partnership. First, we are engaging robustly in domestic policy debates to protect a really fragile recovery in the U.S. and the world. Over the past 2 decades, and particularly this past year, we have been the leading voice in calling for bipartisan infrastructure investment, which will create 2 million jobs a year for the next decade and allow America to rebuild our economic engine. As negotiations continue in the U.S. House, the Chamber is working night and day to see the final passage of the current bill. We will not relent until this job is done. American businesses have invested billions in Indian infrastructure to support your rapidly expanding economy, and we know that rebuilding our own infrastructure will support further Indian investment in the United States. We welcome it. In addition to supporting pro-growth policies, the Chamber fights hard against domestic policies that threaten the U.S. economic recovery or global trade. Policies like the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill, which would raise taxes on job creators and turn inflation into a potentially permanent reality. We will not stand for it. We also fight against policies that impose unnecessary tariffs and create barriers to free trade, such as the steel and aluminum tariffs in the last administration. The second way the Chamber supports businesses is by leading the calls for the kind of U.S. global engagement needed to drive growth at home and around the world. In our view, trade is the best tool available to strengthen our economic recovery at home. And that's why we're urging the Biden administration to lead a robust, forward-leading trade agenda that strengthens and deepens our most valued partnerships. And where better to start than with India? Our nations must get back on offense to create an even stronger trade relationship than we currently have. Other countries are already busy renegotiating their own trade agreements, meaning those who stand still risk falling behind. We were pleased to see President Biden and Prime Minister Modi engage in a productive meeting last month. Their joint statement referenced the U.S.-India relationship as a partnership for global good. That could not be more true. Our $150 billion in two-way trade and $50 billion in annual investment supports our individual and shared prosperity and strengthens our standing as 2 of the world's leading democracies. But the economic cooperation between our countries can always be deepened. The U.S. Chamber and U.S. IBC are urging our governments to resolve lingering trade challenges and create a new U.S.-India trade agenda aimed at achieving an ambitious goal, $500 billion in two-way trade. And we know we can get there together. Third, and finally, the Chamber is determined to expand our collaboration with India and other partners on long-term threats to global prosperity. Among the most pressing of these is climate change, a challenge that cannot be solved by any single nation. and a challenge that will only be solved with the innovation of the private sector. Climate change and energy innovation are and must remain core priorities of the U.S.-India economic partnership. Together, we can continue to develop and deploy new energy technologies, support the sharing of ideas and innovations, and conduct joint research and development through our universities and businesses. Over the past 2 days, this Ideas Summit has delved deeply into all of these topics, from climate resiliency to two-way trade to infrastructure investment, and many others. And we're looking forward to diving even deeper at the Indo-Pacific Business Forum later this month, which India is co-hosting and the Chamber has been closely involved in planning. Especially as India and the US bookend the Indo-Pacific, there's a lot more we could do together to spur business opportunities in the region. As we look at India's tremendous growth in his 7 years as the leader of India, Prime Minister Modi has advanced a vision of inclusive economic growth and opportunity for the Indian people. Through pro-business policies that foster investment, boost confidence, and support innovation, he has helped lift millions of Indians out of poverty and into the middle class, transforming the global economy in the process. All of us at the Chamber are deeply grateful for the Prime Minister's able leadership throughout the pandemic, especially working with us to address unprecedented challenges and keep businesses running, jobs secure, and global supply chains moving. At the same time as our priorities converge, we must continue to work together on further opening India to new investors and partners and enhancing regulatory stability and transparency. We must join together in urging both India and the United States to get serious on their trade agendas to create a more open, free, and prosperous partnership for all. We look forward to working closely with India and all of you to foster a full economic recovery in both of our countries and in the world. At this time, I am pleased to turn this over to Arun Kumar of KPMG to introduce India's Honorable Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Jaishankar. Thank you.
USIBC President Nisha Biswal, friends and supporters of the US-India Business Council. Good evening to those in India and good morning to our audience in the US. It's great to be here in the 46th annual meeting of the US-India Business Council. My compliments to my friend Nisha and the entire team at USIBC and the US Chamber for a successful India Ideas Summit 2021. I am an optimist with regard to the US-India relationship, which has been steadily growing stronger across the strategic as well as economic spectrum. This is a relationship that is firmly anchored on strong people-to-people and business-to-business ties. Today, my task is simple and special: to welcome the Honorable Dr. S. Jaishankar, Minister for External Affairs of the Government of India. Dr. Jaishankar is a distinguished diplomat, having served as Ambassador of India to the United States, China, Singapore, and the Czech Republic. He then served as Foreign Secretary. In a short foray into the private sector, before he was called back into public service, Dr. Jaishankar was President for Global Corporate Affairs at Tata Sons Private Limited. Dr. Jaishankar played an important role in bringing about the civil nuclear breakthrough between the US and India. And 7 years ago, as ambassador in Washington, he was a key architect of getting the US-India relationship back on a vibrant upward path after a period of some drift in 2013-2014. It was at that time, in early 2014, that I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Jaishankar in my role as Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Global Markets and Director General of the US and Foreign Commercial Service in the Obama administration. I could see close at hand what a seasoned and skilled diplomat he was. I could see how he used his deep understanding of policy, international diplomacy, and business, and the interplay between them to craft win-win solutions to advance the bilateral relationship. I must say that working with him was a great learning experience for me. Having observed his intellect and what I might call his principled pragmatism, it was not a surprise to see him write a book, The India Way, Strategies for an Uncertain World. The India Way is indeed a tour de force, not just about India's foreign policy, but about how to think of diplomacy even more broadly. I think of it as an important primer on diplomacy, and in fact, even more broadly on management. Both these domains are about making choices amidst uncertainty and constraints. This audience will appreciate Dr. Jaishankar's perspective that economics drives diplomacy, not the other way around. Dr. Jaishankar joins us today following a successful diplomatic visit to the US when Prime Minister Modi had his first in-person meeting with President Joe Biden in the White House. It is my great pleasure to present to you now the Honorable Minister for External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar.
US IBC President Nisha Biswal, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to speak to you at the US IBC India Ideas Summit and the 46th annual meeting. I do so at a particularly significant moment in our relationship. A fortnight ago, we saw the first in-person meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Joe Biden. This was followed immediately thereafter by the first in-person Quad Summit. Together, these two events provided an opportunity to not only refresh our ties, but give them an updated relevance in a larger context. Appropriately, the outcome document after the bilateral discussions was titled as a partnership for global good. So, we are focused on a relationship that has not only steadily expanded, but is now consequential enough to be imbued with a bigger purpose. As stakeholders, let us reflect on how to take that forward. Prime Minister Modi described our ties in terms of 5 T's: tradition, technology, trade, trusteeship, and talent. The tradition, of course, is one of our democratic values and ethos. This has not only brought our people much closer, but has helped create a powerful bridge between our societies. In many ways, it is a basis for a 6th T, that of trust. The technology T is something that we all know very well. At one level, it is an expression of the creative urges of both our societies. It is equally a powerful driver of business between us. Not least, it has been the reason for deepening the connect of our two nations. And increasingly, a domain for us to work closely with the rest of the international community. The technology T, of course, derives directly from the talent T. We have both encouraged our best minds to freely address the challenges of our contemporary era. In that process, they have generated ideas, innovations, and products that have transformed the nature of our lives. And consequently, the next T, that of trade, has flourished between us. The quality of commerce between India and the United States testifies both to the progress of our respective societies and indeed to our deeper partnership. In business, as much as in strategy, we are endeavoring to overcome the hesitations of history. All of this has to be conducted keeping in mind the long-term future of our environment. Therefore, the relevance of the trusteeship T, a conviction in the well-being of our planet and in securing it for future generations. This outlook of 5 T's permeates both our bilateral summit and that of the Quad. We have reaffirmed the principles on which our societies are organized and agreed to cooperate to nurture our way of life. When it comes to technology, the significance of trusted partners is very much in evidence. Trade discussions focused strongly on the need for reliable and resilient supply chains. With COP26 around the corner, India, as the only G20 nation in line to meet its Paris commitments, made the case for our sustainable future. And in a world where creativity and mobility have acquired a growing salience, the importance of the flow of talent was recognized, including through fellowships. What is noteworthy about our conversations is that they have gone well beyond general arguments and are now expressed as specific initiatives or programs. Consider some of the recent developments. The most pressing challenge, that of COVID, has been met through a Quad initiative which taps into the strengths of each of the participants. The climate action concern is addressed, amongst others, through the US-India Climate and Clean Energy Agenda 2030 partnership. The relevance of advanced technologies is captured by Quad initiatives ranging from AI, 5G and beyond, to critical minerals, space, and blockchain. Our trade potential is being more aggressively explored bilaterally through the Trade Policy Forum and in a larger group through additional supply chains. The importance of infrastructure is similarly being discussed in terms of high quality and market viable initiatives. The people-centric nature of our activities is affirmed in education, innovation, R&D, and mobility. When it comes to defense and security, the benefits of India being a major defense partner of the US are becoming evident. And our collective Quad commitment to maritime security is equally relevant. On many of the big challenges of the day, terrorism, pandemics, or climate change, our thinking is along parallel paths. We not only work together on global issues, but are dedicated to the well-being of the global commons. That provides the basis for coordinated action. What does all this mean for those in business? To begin with, it clearly signals a very positive enabling environment. When polities have strong convergences, their economic energies tend to find partners much more readily. Second, both India-US relations and the Quad speak of a newer and more collaborative era of our ties. We are seeing value in each other more clearly and with less constraints. 3, in an era where technology is increasingly connected with trust and supply chains with reliability, we are contemplating how best to take forward post-COVID economic recovery. So, as you deliberate on all these subjects and more, I also hope that you will take into account the transformation in India even amidst the pandemic, the nature of the public health response, the fiscal handling of the pandemic-induced challenges, the reforms in labor, education, and agriculture, and the expansion of manufacturing are developments that surely merit your consideration. At the end of the day, any relationship is only as strong as its economic foundation. You are all charged with strengthening that even in the normal course. But as we seek to come out of the pandemic with a more purposeful agenda of cooperation, your understanding and sentiments acquire an even greater value. I'm sure you've had a successful summit. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for the 46th USIBC India Ideas Summit and Annual General Meeting. The past 18 months have been challenging for so many across the US-India corridor. The goal of this year's summit was twofold. One, to listen to and reflect on stories of courage, endurance, and perseverance during this trying time. And 2, to look ahead and chart opportunities for resurgence in our economies and in our societies. Though we connected virtually, we were fortunate to bring together a special group of visionary leaders from industry, from both of our governments, and from leading research institutions. We hope that you've found the past 2 days to be enlightening, informative, and thought-provoking at this pivotal moment in the US-India relationship. This year's summit would not have been possible without the generous support of our sponsors, each of whom have directly contributed to improving the lives of our democratic citizens. We must first recognize our platinum sponsors who helped lead this summit with creativity and vision. They inspire us all with their commitment to a better world. Abbott Laboratories, a true pioneer of life-saving medical innovation committed to improving the lives of people around the globe. And KPMG, a global leader in the marketplace of ideas, helping organizations large and small cut through complexity in this challenging age. We also want to recognize our gold sponsors who represent every area of human endeavor. For instance, the connectivity and resilience of FedEx, the personal care and service of Amway, the safety and security forged by Lockheed Martin, the innovation and inclusivity led by Salesforce, the financial well-being ensured by TransUnion, the digital and data revolutions powered by SAP, the transformation of mobility driven by Uber, and the commitment and human focus of Walmart. Furthermore, we'd like to extend a special thanks to our silver sponsors for their commitment to this year's summit, including Citi, Covington and Burling, NASDAQ, Boeing, Illumina, Medtronic, American Tower Corporation, and Tata. I also want to acknowledge our chamber colleagues who have worked tirelessly to help bring this year's summit to life, especially our talented AV and digital event professionals. Thank you. And from Delhi to DC, our USIBC team devoted themselves to delivering a content-rich gathering for our member companies. Finally, from all of us at the US Chamber, a warm thank you to our viewers and our broader USIBC network of nearly 10,000 people from across the world. We know that for many, the last year and a half has brought hardship and pain, but you are an exceptional community capable of overcoming anything. You have helped lift the US-India relationship to new heights, and as this summit showed us, we at USIBC are certain that the best has yet to come. Be safe, be well, and thank you. We will see you again soon.